I had been alone in that house before. That's what convinced me it would be fine. My parents left town on a Tuesday evening in late October. I remembered the date because it was the first night the cold really settled in. The kind of cold that didn't rush in all at once, but crept through the walls and stayed there. They were going to visit relatives 2 states away, 3 nights, 4 days. My sister had already packed a bag and gone to a friend's place. I watched them pull out of the driveway at exactly 6:47 p.m. The dashboard clock on my dad's car was 5 minutes fast, so I checked my phone to be sure. When the red glow of their taillights disappeared at the end of the street, I closed the front door and locked it. Deadbolt. Chain. I always did both when I was alone. Not because I was scared, just habit. The house felt different the moment they left. Not quieter, just emptier. Like the air had more room to move. I walked through the living room, turning on lamps instead of overhead lights, the way my mom preferred. Yellow light, soft corners, no harsh shadows. I reheated leftover pasta, ate straight from the bowl, and stood by the kitchen counter scrolling through my phone. I remember noticing how loud my chewing sounded. Every small noise felt amplified. The refrigerator hummed too loudly. The clock over the sink ticked in a way I'd never noticed before. At 9:32 p.m., I turned the TV on just to have something else in the room with me. Some sports recap I didn't care about. I wasn't really watching. I just liked the sound of voices. Around 10, I muted it. That was when I noticed the house wasn't actually silent. There was a sound underneath everything else. Faint, inconsistent, like something shifting its weight somewhere far away. At first, I thought it was outside, wind in the trees, a car passing. But when I leaned closer, I realized it was coming from inside the house. I stood still. The sound stopped. I took one step toward the hallway. It started again. It wasn't footsteps. Not exactly. More like fabric brushing against wood. A soft, dragging sound, as if someone was moving very carefully, trying not to make noise and failing just a little. I told myself it was the house settling. Old houses make noise. Everyone knows that. Temperature drops, wood contracts, pipes shift. I had lived there for over 10 years. I knew its sounds. This wasn't one of them. I walked into the kitchen to rinse my bowl. The sound followed me, faint but present. I turned on the faucet. The water drowned it out. When I turned the faucet off, the sound didn't come back. I laughed quietly to myself, more out of embarrassment than relief, and shook my head. "Get a grip," I muttered. I went upstairs at 10:14 p.m. The hallway light flickered when I turned it on. It always did. I stepped over the loose board near my parents' bedroom without thinking. Muscle memory. I brushed my teeth, washed my face, and checked my phone again. No missed calls, no texts. I left the bathroom door open when I finished. I didn't want the hallway completely dark. As I crossed toward my bedroom, I heard it. A door, closing, downstairs. Not a slam, not a creak. Just the soft, deliberate sound of wood meeting wood. I stopped in the hallway. My heart started pounding so hard I could feel it in my ears. Every door downstairs had been closed earlier. I was sure of it. I always closed them when I was alone. It made the space feel smaller, easier to control. I waited. No footsteps followed, no voices, no laughter from a TV I'd forgotten to turn off. Nothing. After a full minute, I crept to the top of the stairs and looked down. The living room was empty. Shadows lay exactly where they should have been. The front door was still locked. I stood there for a long time, listening. Finally, I told myself it had to be pressure in the house. Maybe the back door shifted. Maybe the laundry room door moved because of airflow. I hated how hard I was trying to explain it. I went into my bedroom and locked the door. Another habit, I lay in bed scrolling on my phone until my eyes burned. At some point, I turned the screen off and just listened to my own breathing. The house creaked once. Then again, normal sounds, familiar sounds. At 11:02 p.m., someone knocked on my door. 3 taps, soft, even, patient. I sat straight up in bed. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I stared at the handle as if it might turn on its own. My mouth felt dry. My hands were shaking so badly I had to tuck them under my legs. I waited for my phone to buzz with a message from my sister or a friend. Some dumb joke, anything. Nothing came. The knock didn't repeat. Minutes passed, then more. I checked the time. 11:17 p.m. I whispered, "Hello." My voice sounded small, embarrassingly small. No answer. I stayed awake for over an hour, staring at the door. Every time the house made a noise, my muscles tensed. At some point, exhaustion won. My eyes closed without my permission. I woke up at 2:41 a.m. I knew the time because I checked my phone the moment I opened my eyes. Something had woken me. Footsteps, slow, careful, coming up the stairs. They stopped right outside my bedroom. I could see a shadow shift under the door. Whoever it was stood there long enough for my legs to start cramping from staying still. Long enough that tears pooled in my eyes without me realizing it. Then the handle turned. Once. It didn't open. The handle turned again, harder. I heard a breath on the other side of the door. Not a sigh, a controlled exhale, like someone steadying themselves. Then the footsteps moved away, down the stairs. I didn't sleep again. When morning came, every door downstairs was open, including the front door. The chain was still attached. I lived alone at the time, not in a dramatic way, no fresh breakup, no tragic reason. I had just moved closer to work and found a cheap duplex on the edge of town. One bedroom, one bathroom, a narrow living room that smelled faintly of old carpet cleaner, no matter how many times I vacuumed. The street was quiet, 6 houses total, no sidewalks, just gravel shoulders and mailboxes leaning at odd angles. At night, it felt cut off from everything else, like the road forgot to connect us to the rest of the city. I worked nights back then, warehouse job, loading trucks. My schedule rotated, but that week I was on late shifts, 4 p.m. to 2 a.m. I slept during the day, lived in the dark, got used to being alone. That night, my shift got canceled last minute. Power outage at the warehouse. I remember pulling over in the parking lot, checking the message twice to make sure it was real. Then I turned the car around and drove home. The clock on my dashboard said 10:08 p.m. When I turned onto my street, I slowed down. My porch light was on. I never left it on. I parked under the street light across from my place instead of in my driveway. Just sat there with the engine running, staring at my front door. The yellow glow spilled onto the porch steps. Too bright, too deliberate. I told myself I probably forgot. It happens sometimes. Rarely, but sometimes. Still, I didn't get out of the car right away. I scanned the windows. Living room blinds were half open like always. Bedroom window dark. No movement, no silhouettes. Finally, I shut off the engine and walked up the driveway. Gravel crunched under my boots, loud in the quiet. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The first thing I noticed was the smell. It wasn't bad. That was the problem. It smelled clean. Not my clean. Something sharper, like someone else's soap or deodorant. A scent that didn't belong to me or the house. I stood just inside the door, keys still in my hand, listening. Nothing. I locked the door. Deadbolt. Chain. Then I checked every room. Bathroom first. Shower curtain pulled back. Closet door open. Empty. Bedroom next. Under the bed. Nothing. Kitchen. Laundry nook. Even the tiny storage space near the water heater. No one was there. I told myself the smell was my imagination. Or maybe the landlord had been by earlier. Maintenance. Something like that. I hated how easily I accepted that explanation. I put my keys on the counter in their usual spot. Exact place. Muscle memory again. I microwaved something frozen and ate on the couch with the TV on low. The porch light stayed on. I didn't turn it off. Around midnight, I went to bed. I remember checking the locks one more time. Door still secure. Windows latched. Everything normal. At 12:36 a.m., the floor creaked. It came from the living room. Not the usual settling noise. This was a single heavy creak, like weight being placed on one spot and held there. I held my breath. Another creak followed, closer this time. Someone was walking. I sat up in bed, heart pounding, and grabbed my phone. I turned on the flashlight and kept the screen dim. I didn't want to light myself up like a target. The hallway was empty. The living room looked normal. Couch, coffee table, TV off, front door still locked. I checked the lock anyway. Deadbolt engaged. Chain hanging loose but untouched. I checked the time. 12:41 a.m. That's when my phone vibrated. A text message. Unknown number. "You're home early." My stomach dropped so fast I thought I was going to throw up. I stared at the screen, waiting for the words to change. For a follow-up message. A correction. Something that made sense. Nothing came. I didn't respond. Another vibration. "I didn't expect you tonight." My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. I typed back, deleted it, typed again, deleted again. Finally, I sent one word. "Who is this?" The reply came immediately. "You left the spare key where it always is." I didn't have a spare key outside. I never had. I checked the front door again. Locked. Still locked. Another message buzzed. "I'll leave soon." I didn't wait to see anything else. I grabbed my keys, shoes, and jacket and walked straight out the door. I didn't run. I didn't turn around. I got in my car and drove until the street disappeared behind me. I spent the night in a grocery store parking lot with the engine running. In the morning, I called the landlord. He swore no one else had access. No maintenance had been scheduled. No spare keys were missing. When I went back later that day, the house smelled normal again. My keys were still on the counter, in their exact spot. I moved out 2 days later. The number never answered when I tried to call it. Eventually, it stopped existing altogether. By the time this happened, I had already learned something about being alone. Not the obvious stuff, not that silence can get loud, or that shadows stretch when you stare at them too long. I learned that the real fear comes from routines breaking, from small things being wrong in ways you can't immediately explain. That's what made this night stick with me. I had just moved into the house 2 weeks earlier. New city, new job, temporary rental while I figured out where I actually wanted to live. The place was old but clean. 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, narrow hallway. The kind of house that felt like it had been lived in by a lot of people who never stayed very long. My first night alone there was a Thursday. I remembered that because trash pickup was scheduled for Friday morning, and the previous tenant had left the bin half full. I rolled it out to the curb at exactly 8:52 p.m., glanced up and down the street, and noticed how quiet everything was. No kids, no music, no barking dogs, just streetlights humming softly and the distant sound of traffic I couldn't see. When I went back inside, I locked the door and leaned against it for a second longer than necessary. The house smelled like cardboard and dust. Half my stuff was still in boxes, mattress on the floor, no curtains yet. The living room windows faced the street, and the glow from the streetlight poured straight in, cutting the room into pale rectangles. I ate standing up, scrolling through emails, trying to convince myself this was normal, that everyone felt like this in a new place, that the discomfort would fade. Around 10 p.m., I started my routine. It was stupidly methodical. Kitchen light off, living room lamp off, bathroom light left on, bedroom light on, hallway light last, always last. I don't know why I did it that way, I just did. When I turned off the kitchen light, the house fell into deeper shadow. The refrigerator hum sounded louder. The air felt heavier, like it wasn't moving right. I paused in the living room and looked at the front door. Locked. Deadbolt turned fully, chain hanging loose. I checked the time on my phone. 10:17 p.m. That's when I noticed the sound. Breathing, not close, not far, somewhere in the house. At first I thought it was me. I held my breath. The sound continued, slow, controlled, through the nose. I stood still, heart hammering, listening for any other noise. Footsteps, fabric, anything. Nothing else came. I told myself it had to be the house. Air moving through vents, pipes, something mechanical. I didn't believe it. I turned off the living room lamp and walked down the hallway toward the bathroom. The light there felt too bright, too exposed. I used the toilet, washed my hands, and stared at myself in the mirror longer than necessary. My face looked pale, older. When I turned off the bathroom light, the hallway behind me was completely dark except for the faint glow from my bedroom. That's when I felt it, that pressure between your shoulders, the unmistakable sense that someone was standing just behind you. I didn't turn around. I walked faster. I reached my bedroom, stepped inside, and locked the door. My hands were shaking so badly I missed the lock the first time. I sat on the mattress and listened. Nothing. I checked the time again. 10:29 p.m. I lay down fully dressed, phone in my hand, flashlight off. The streetlight outside cast thin bars of light across the ceiling. Every time a car passed, shadows shifted. Sometime after midnight, I must have drifted off. I woke up because the light changed. The room was darker. The streetlight glow was gone. For a second, I was confused. Then I realized why. The hallway light was on. I sat up. I knew I had turned it off. I always turned it off. Always last. I stared at the gap under my bedroom door. Light spilled through. I didn't move. I checked the time. 2:13 a.m. Then I heard it. A whisper. Right outside the door. My name. Not loud, not urgent, casual, like someone saying it to get your attention. I pressed my hand over my mouth to stop myself from making a sound. The whisper came again, closer to the door this time. I stayed there until my legs went numb. When morning came, the hallway light was still on. The switch was down. The front door was locked from the inside. I moved out the next week. Sometimes when I'm alone at night, I still leave one light on.